Absolutely.
What makes me angry is not just the insult to the role of this committee, but to our intelligence. Do you really expect us to accept these canned, rehearsed, practiced answers repeated again and again and again by judicial nominees who have an obligation to be truthful, and most important, you have an obligation to be independent. You both know better. You both have records of litigating, and you both would expect more of nominees in your position because, above all, a federal judge must be independent without fear or favor, and your fear, apparently, of Donald Trump, so much so that you practiced with the White House before you came here and rehearsed this answer and are repeating by rote what you've been told to say, in my view, is disqualifying. And I'm really disappointed in both of you because I would have expected better. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Thank you both for your willingness to serve and for being here today. Mr. Flowers, who won the 2020 election?
Senator Blumenthal, I'll incorporate the answer that Justice Jackson gave that Chairman Grassley referred to earlier. It wouldn't be appropriate for me to comment on the outcomes of any election except to say that, legally speaking, Joe Biden was certified.
Justice Jackson said it would be inappropriate for her as a sitting federal judge. You are not a sitting federal judge. Who won the 2020 election?
Senator, it's long been understood that nominees should abide by the same code of ethics that binds sitting judges. So I do think her example is persuasive, and I intend to follow it.
I think your failure to answer that question mocks this committee, and I will just say to you, she declined to answer based on the code of ethics because at the time she was a sitting federal judge, and frankly, I know Justice Jackson. You're no Justice Jackson, and I would ask her the same question and insist on her answering it if she were the nominee today. So I'll give you one more chance. Who won the 2020 election, sir?
I'll again adhere to Justice Jackson's precedent.
Mr. Schwartz, who won the 2020 election?
So, Senator, I think the answer that Justice Jackson gave is the only legally and ethically correct answer.
You recognize that you're not a sitting federal judge.
Senator, the rules for judicial conduct apply to judicial nominees who are not judges as well.
No, they don't, Mr. Schwartz, and you know better. And you are, in fact, fooling or trying to fool this committee and the general public. And you've appeared before a lot of distinguished Second Circuit judges. I'm willing to bet you know they would not answer the question this way. Who won the popular vote, Mr. Schwartz, in the 2020 election?
So, Senator, again, consistent with the answer that Justice Jackson and other prior nominees—
This is a factual question, Mr. Schwartz. It's a matter of public record. You wouldn't answer the question in this way if you were before a judge, would you?
Senator, sitting here as a judicial nominee, I'm bound by the codes of conduct, and I can't answer that question in the way you want me to, because the only legally and ethically correct answer is the one that prior nominees have given, which is that Joe Biden was certified as president in 2020.
Let me ask you, Mr. Flowers, this answer that you've given obviously has been rehearsed. Who did you meet with at the White House before you came here in preparing?
Senator, I did practice moots, I suppose you'd call them, with folks from White House counsel. But
you practiced?
I didn't practice a particular answer. I'm responding to the question you asked.
Well, sounds to me like you practiced. Mr. Schwartz, did you practice as well?
Senator, I did moots with Mr. Flowers and other people, but this answer is the same answer that has been given by Justice Jackson and by prior nominees as well, because again, it's the correct answer legally and it's the only ethically acceptable
Mr.
answer.
Schwartz, was the Capitol attacked on January 6th?
Senator, there was definitely trespass and violence at the Capitol on January 6th, and obviously violence against law enforcement or against political actors is unacceptable.
So the Capitol was attacked violently on January 6th, correct?
So again, Senator, you're asking me to weigh in on sort of public characterizations. What I will say is that the Capitol there was trespass and there was violence at the Capitol on January 6th, absolutely.
You know, what makes me angry is not just the insult to the role of this committee, but to our intelligence. Do you really expect us to accept these canned, rehearsed, practiced answers repeated again and again and again by judicial nominees who have an obligation to be truthful, and most important, you have an obligation to be independent. You both know better. You both have records of litigating, and you both would expect more of nominees in your position because, above all, a federal judge must be independent without fear or favor, and your fear, apparently, of Donald Trump, so much so that you practiced with the White House before you came here and rehearsed this answer and are repeating by rote what you've been told to say, in my view, is disqualifying. And I'm really disappointed in both of you because I would have expected better. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a point of personal privilege? Yes. On page 3 of the Canons of Judicial Ethics, makes pretty clear, and it says right here in black and white, the code is designed to provide guidance to judges and nominees for judicial office. Just wanted to make that clear.
I hope my opening statement I meant to make to put an answer or an end to this circus.
You need more than they're trying to clean up for you.
I think that what Justice Jackson said is very clear. Put that chart up again. And what Senator Lee just said was the same point that Justice Jackson was making about the practice before the Supreme Court. So let me read what Jackson said, quote, "It would be inappropriate for me to publicly weigh into any subject of political debate." And I don't know what more I can say to put an end to this issue that brings in a whole lot of hypocrisy and efforts to create sound bites to make qualified people to be on the courts legitimate versus their efforts to make your appointment illegitimate.
Mr. Chairman, in fairness to Justice Jackson, I want to point out that the full quote is, as you've described it, inappropriate to comment, quote, "as a pending judicial nominee and a sitting federal judge." They are not sitting federal judges. And I also want to point out, Mr. Chairman, that Justice Jackson's response was not sitting here. It was in a written response. So putting her picture there with her right hand raised, I think, is a bit misleading. But the fact of the matter is, I will rest my case on what I have said here, and I will be voting against these nominees based on their failure to respond to the American people, not just us.
Senator Arano.
All right, let's break down the intense psychological and legal chess match playing out in this hearing room. What you are witnessing is a classic institutional standoff that has become a defining feature of modern federal judicial confirmations. On one side, you have a veteran lawmaker trying to extract a definitive, politically binding statement. On the other, you have elite appellate litigators who know that a single, unscripted word could implode their nominations. Senator Richard Blumenthal leads with what sounds like a deceptively simple, factual question: who won the 2020 election? But in the hyperpolarized landscape of 2026, this isn't a history quiz. It's a diagnostic test of political alignment. Benjamin Flowers immediately deploys a sophisticated defensive shield, citing the precedent set by Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson during her own confirmation battle. He states that it's inappropriate to comment on election outcomes beyond noting the legal reality: Joe Biden was certified. Blumenthal instantly spots the structural vulnerability in that defense and pounces. He delivers a sharp, biting correction. Justice Jackson was a sitting federal judge bound by strict active ethics rules when she said that these nominees are not. This is where the friction turns raw. Blumenthal snaps, "I know Justice Jackson. You're no Justice Jackson," explicitly accusing Flowers of mocking the committee. When he turns the exact same screw on Matthew Schwartz, Schwartz stands his ground, re-anchoring his position in the text of Canon 3 of the Code of Judicial Conduct, which explicitly notes that the rules apply to judicial nominees, not just sitting judges. The battle lines shift from the election to the actual preparation behind the scenes. Blumenthal zeroes in on the fact that these identical, hyper-precise answers aren't organic. They are the product of moot court prep sessions inside the White House. He uses this to attack their most critical asset, their perceived independence. To Blumenthal, the fact that they practice these answers with White House counsel proves they are acting out of fear of political blowback from Donald Trump, a charge he explicitly calls disqualifying. To test their semantic boundaries further, Blumenthal pivots to January 6th, asking Schwartz if the Capitol was attacked violently. Watch the linguistic precision here. Schwartz completely avoids using the politically loaded word attacked, choosing instead to describe it as trespass and violence against law enforcement. It's a masterclass in risk mitigation. For the nominees, giving into Blumenthal's phrasing creates a media soundbite. Resisting it protects their confirmation, but infuriates the committee. The segment wraps up with a fascinating meta-debate over a poster board graphic on the Senate floor. The Republican chairman tries to bail out the nominees by holding up a chart of Justice Jackson's quote to shut down what he calls a circus. But Blumenthal gets the final, sharp forensic word, pointing out that the chart is visually misleading because it puts a picture of Jackson with her hand raised next to a quote she actually wrote in a quiet, post-hearing brief. Ultimately, this transcript isn't just about the 2020 election or the layout of a Senate chart. It's an unsanitized look at the total collapse of trust between the branches of government, where legal ethics are weaponized as shields and oversight is treated as a political trap.